Okay, so we're here. The day has finally come. I found time to do another lesson again. Um, just an update. I'm still working on the mathematics lessons. Derivatives can get as deep as you like it, but I have to set a reasonable limit. So I'm just taking it to its maximum extent, so I could make good lessons on that. Um, this is not even half of a percent of what I need to write here and stuff, but it's going to be there for you to scrub through the video and stuff and read once it's done. Uh, like not I'm not gonna say real or serious calculus, but like the essential Newtonian calculus, the Leibniz calculus realized and stuff, for all of its amazingness, is is certainly something to behold, and I think people will derive a lot of competence from it, to get a sense of the clear casings and how to use it and stuff, and why it works, and the value of it. Okay, so there. But yeah, let's get into it. So this video is about, well, what does a good educational system need? Good meaning what, like, and that is to say, what should an educational system have? Like, how do you set the reference point against the ideal so that your educational program is where it's at, where it could be and stuff. And, you know, obviously without blowing a gasket, because let's be real and stuff, hard mental labor, it can take up to a week of recovery, depending on how much you do it and stuff. There's the brain, it accumulates waste and stuff, and there's a lot of health factors in there and stuff. But to any, whatever degree is medically permissible, I would say to try to study every single day and stuff. I do it and stuff. I'm here with my CompTIA A plus textbook and stuff. It's 1,200 pages. I'm on 973 and stuff because, and just squeezing everything down to the essential, maybe 150 pages. Then I have to remember all of that and stuff, and all of the technician stuff. And yeah, so as you can imagine, I'm quite the formidable technician. it's it's I It's glad that the government picked me up and had me work on their installations. That was pretty cool. I'll be glad to be going back, but at a nicer pay grade with a little bit more sway and stuff. Because, yeah, site seems to be whipped into shape, huh? So, okay, so let's get into it. Foundations of U.S. General Educational Systems. And I'm reading it out and stuff because, so it's not, because so you can get really get your attention on it more. Now, all politics aside, what should an all-encompassing education system best have in no order of importance? Keyword, no order of importance and stuff. Meaning, please take this seriously as something that's effective and stuff. So, as my background, I used to work as a teacher for Hillsborough County in Florida and stuff. Before that, I got my start in well, not before that. During that time, I got my official start working as a teacher in teaching remedial classes for students who genuinely needed a skilled teacher in order to learn. I later moved on to normal and gifted teaching classes. And I worked as a substitute and stuff, but I knew pedagogy so well, so I just went ham with it and stuff. I got job offers and stuff. It was very encouraging. Unfortunately, Florida is not my natural habitat and stuff, and so I just I knew I made a promise to myself to move back home. So yeah, I had to part ways. So yes, before that, I trained a lot of people at work. I also tutored others in college pro bono and stuff. I generally was always the guy helping confuse or lagging students in class in high school before that, and I think maybe even middle school. I had a character arc as a child where, somebody really came up to me and splashed the cold water in my face and explained why I was having I was I was upset and unhappy and everything as I was, and um, it wasn't just one person. A few people had it to give me a piece of their mind and stuff, and like it made me realize like yeah, I need to do something, like I need to change and stuff. A lot of my favorite shows showed people changing and stuff. Uh, lots of people being converted into better people and stuff. So at around age 12, 13, you know I started to make that shift in my personality. And I started to be concerned more with the welfare of other people, and it 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 had amazing benefits and stuff. There's many things I avoided in my life that happened to other people that did not happen to me. And I have I'm in a very good position and future in my life now for this reason. So um, I thank the people who gave me that experience, including my mother, uh, my father, my uncle, all the people that are really the um, got the ball rolling with my development. Um, so now the question: what should educational systems genuinely and earnestly instill in their pupils, neophytes, and other teachables and stuff? In the sense that they are respective to the word of it and stuff, not like people just forget and do what they want and stuff. And how to teach it? Well, you gotta. I know part of it starts with setting a big picture, set the proper big picture, the importance, the consequentialness, etc. of these values must be made clear to perception. Nobody gets left behind and stuff. Everybody should understand the position of the game we all share and stuff. Now, as for the second bullet and stuff, I, under no conditions, should a teacher refuse to teach a gifted or even profoundly gifted student. You got to feed them books and stuff, and feed them other learning education materials. You got and get them a sense of career and stuff. Maybe even some sense of industriousness. Um, so what is the first thing on this list? Not necessarily the most important. Again, this is in no order of importance. Creativity. It's the ability to make things, etc. This is not an exclusive term, but a neighborhood of concepts and stuff. So over here with the etc., this is a neighborhood of concepts and stuff. Creativity touches on the ability to make things, touches on craftsmanship, touches on doing good quality work, touches on improvisation skills and sense of improvisation, and creativity opens up into the arts and whatnot. Just so students are given a fair shot and stuff. I understand that the artistic disciplines are not so appetizing to everybody for many factors, for psychologically deterministic factors and stuff, which definitely partly have roots in biology. And so I understand that there's different occupational perspectives there. So I'm just respecting those. There's like 50, 60 occupational answers for this, respective to certain subjects and their knowledge bases. So I understand it's not about like one definition. I get it. Okay. I'm not stupid. So, um, so going to the next topic, speaking of stupidity and stuff, we're going to talk about the opposite, which is thinking skills, mental equipment, and common sense. This should be cultivated and taught to students, not just in the sense of like common core questions and answers and stuff like that, because it's not, it doesn't necessarily have a meaning to some of these kids for one reason or another and stuff. A lot of these kids are reserved to other hobbies and stuff, and there's got to be a way to like pull that attention out and find that blank attentional space and put it onto the thing, and then kind of have their brains vacuum, take the pieces as the vacuum can fit it and stuff, and then that mental vacuum, that mental muscle for learning gets stronger and stronger and stuff. And cultivating that mental muscle for learning is so important by encouraging these kids to make sure to learn as much as possible and study every day and stuff, without of course blowing a gasket, or needing like serious medical care, needing like medical care over it, or causing trauma and stuff. I know there are even traumas that can result from being too sedentary. So there's all right. So um, and there's nothing wrong with standing up and studying or walking around the book. It's perfectly fine. So yes. So this as far as like teaching thinking skills, equipment, and common sense includes the skepticism for unprovable claims, like understanding skepticism for unprovable claims in the legally syndicated domain and stuff. Because I understand, this risky and protected intelligence. Fine, 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 fine. I understand stuff. It's I get the us versus them. Okay. In full respect to, and this is in full respect to unified intelligence community, respect to the U.S. and stuff. You have the CIA, NSA, and stuff, um, and, and other authoritarian bodies and stuff that know for a fact that some information or knowledge is dangerous and becomes even more dangerous when shown to dangerous people and stuff. I get it. And so that should any good education system should respect that, and I would never ever try to mess up my home country by trying to say that, oh yeah, we should just be giving these kids the full skinny on Aikido or something, like that sort of thing. So here we go. Next topic: law, civic duty, dynamic order and stuff. Good faith behavior and ethics, morals and stuff. Dynamic order here is written with respect to the fact that order over time oscillates and it has a tolerance point before things break down into crime or serious accidents and just a bunch of junk that doesn't need to happen, really. Ethics and morals. There's two sides of it that need to be taught and stuff. You have the lingual side of it, and you have the side of it that falls outside of conversation and philosophy and stuff. The non-lingual side is probably the toughest to communicate, but it should be made clear and stuff. Especially in students that might have, and this is important so students with verbal and nonverbal imbalances can kind of understand how to maybe bridge the gap, or find the stimulation to round off the character as much as possible. So here we go. Now, as a civic duty, one thing of many about civic duty needs to be taught is that civic duty says, more or less, when it's not about you, it's not about you. Don't tread on the collective, and it doesn't have the right to set you straight. You are not the center of the collective universe, and I can't stress this more, but egocentrism, as is purposely defined, meaning egocentrism as in, like, you're only thinking about what benefits you, even if it's to the detriment of society. You just don't care, or like maybe you would just hate society. So you just you leech off of others, you harm others and stuff. Abuse external controls to make it like zero sum. So egocentrism, as is purposely defined, is one of the most unhealthy, socially destructive things that are taught to people. It makes people into greedy, toxic narcissists, fact, that grab at everything they can reach, regardless if it is in a hungry mouth or not. It teaches disrespect for propriety and to abandon the innocent needy, because greed is rewarded in civilizations that are dependent on the paying yield of selfishness administered by self-interested people who consistently misrepresent and commit heinous crime in order to make money and stuff. And in addition to not just crime, but also just morally offensive behaviors, I can think of insurance fraud as being one. But and unfortunately, when it comes to United States society, to a degree, to a very large degree, too much of a degree, it does depend on egocentrism and stuff. That is an unfortunate fact of the. But this is not a video on economics and society, the establishment, that type of stuff. So just go to the next one. National defense, law enforcement, and public defense of the United States. Does it have to be questioned? As destruction, disruption, or domination of all enemies, foreign and domestic. What's it doesn't feel like it's made clear enough and stuff. And I understand there are foreign students that go to other countries and stuff, but that can be addressed. That can be addressed too and stuff. advocation of the United States and its residents, so important, so important. Um, this is our home. This is the home we were born in. This is the home that raised us. You know, we can't we can't just treat it like a toilet. We just can't. Um, not like in that more literal sense of like littering and stuff. I'm not talking about that kind of concrete petty stuff. Um, so as far as advocacy of the United States and its residents goes, humanity is sacred. You know, what we are afforded in this life is central and sacred. Our country is central and sacred. It should be very central to institutions, and institutions should not be allowed to become parasitic. It's meaning humanity here. Humanity should be very central to institutions. Um, and institutions should not be allowed to become parasitic because they degenerate where they share their existence with human life, which causes civilizations to fail. It has been shown in history time and time again and stuff. Um, at, to the best of my individual ability, I will stress this so people get it. Okay, you got all the time in the world to understand it. So, and by no means is this a run for any political position and stuff. I understand I all too well that the establishment is not going to permit any sort of any sort of corrections on itself because of how it feeds and how it's rewarded and how it's punished and stuff. It's become addicted to egocentrism. So yes, it is upheld and should always be upheld as regardless of that. Everything I'm talking about here is regardless of race, religion, gender, class, and other criteria that fall under personal and the personal discrimination criteria as stated by the U.S. Codes of Professionalism. These codes very nicely respect a very nice dynamic and and encapsulating definition of discrimination and stuff. Marginalized groups are more accurately and effectively defined by specific human groupings, though, like haplocodes, ethnocultural names, like for example, like Lors versus Bakhtiari and stuff like that. Family group, tribe, denomination, etc. That type of thing and stuff, because those things do modulate a person's psychological makeup, it, including the languages people are raised in. So. We can even say lingual group. There we go. Competence, professionalism. Yeah, that has to be taught and stuff. To knowledge and literacy of data, including complex data, all academic subjects and trades. As I mentioned in this channel previously, there are about 60 to 70 areas that encompass everything and stuff. And we also talk about domains of knowledge. Skilled trades are just as important. Work in general is also very important, including a theory, even if it's very simple and for the bottom third of pupils in this class. Now, mind you, this ideally should be taught in every university or college and stuff. High school, middle school, like it should all like line up and work together instead of like basically having people do a little bit here, a little bit here, and then ultimately end up with nothing and stuff. That is a system that creates valuable and loyal operators, residents, however you want to analytically define it. So different occupations and subject respective to certain subject areas define it a different way. So resource engineering, this is so important and stuff. You can't rely on supply chains that belong to somebody else to create all the resources. It's not realistic. It's not practical. It's not effective. It's not desirable. Okay. We've become the apple that's too heavy for the branch. Sorry. Okay. So, economies don't take care of themselves. The operators in them need to contribute, and that contribution eats resources. The procurement of products and services is waste, and some of that waste is not efficiently recyclable. It's just a fact. Economies are poorly managed by centralized control that is underscaled and stuff. Then again, there's also the question of the ruling versus the ruled and stuff. They have to, the consent has to go both ways and stuff. People should not live in systems that do not work with their psychology and stuff. And at all levels. And these systems require a strong chain of command, a chain of command that is resilient and can address things quickly and effectively and stuff. Chain of command that is backed by expertise with non-lagging or lagless information the important information and stuff, respecting, human rights and stuff about what is going on. But they must lead with a sense of creating abundance for everybody, regardless of income level, race, gender, and such categories. I cannot stress this more and stuff. All U.S. residents are important and stuff. Decision making, including risk management and stuff. Yeah, yeah. It'll give pupils a fair shot and stuff. Job skills. ONET is a great resource for knowing what skills and careers are out there. Military MOSs and ratings are great too, for just addressing the fact that not everybody is going to qualify for military service for one reason or another. I mean, maybe the military should have some reforms too, but I'm not in the place to talk about it, in the position to say what they should or should not do. It's not my domain, and so I have too much respect for them. They're the people who educated me. So hey, through AMU and Georgia Military College and stuff, like, sort of. It's not really a military school in the way that a military-based school is. That's the thing. So the big question: how to place pupils where they are going to be meeting their dreams and fulfill their public service requirements. Yes, that should be a guidepost, a guiding light for that aspect of it. Study and learning skills. Yeah, very critical to everything and stuff. It makes attention adaptive and stuff. We can talk about the real usefulness of the brain later on. Self-development skills, centered on the idea. What personality do you want to inherently become? And is it good? What about after that? Those are the questions that people should be able to answer in their actions and in their thoughts and stuff. The difference between what we take as perceptible fact and what is absolutely a fact is, well, a difference, which implies possible divergence and stuff. Not all claims are meant in the inherent sense, and those can become our thoughts and stuff. So, and applying that idea to this and stuff, students, pupils should be brought to think critically about this and stuff, to where they really understand what careers and callings they want to get into and stuff, and understand what the economic situation is going to be and what it is and stuff. Where they're going to make room in their life for their interests. That type of thing. Social skills, social consciousness, healthy psychological behavior, etc. Some of the things that are involved in this are good manners and healthy personality and stuff. Those things are so integral to society. It prevents all kinds of chaos and just upset, and so, which all sounds like fun and games and excitement until somebody's kid or grandma or stuff really gets themselves in a pickle. Cooperating and getting along with people who are different than you, knowing when others are around you and the real intent, reading people's character, their personality, respecting the rights of others, living in the world with other people, helping others, especially those in a rough spot who are not criminals, which falls under aiding and abetting anyway and stuff. Positive language, not abusing external controls and other important aspects of living in the world. I cannot stress this more. External controls, everything from traffic lights to traffic signs and those things, lines on the road and stuff like that influence behavior. Those should be left to the experts that manage them, that are managing them in good faith. Social justice, making sure, which in the sense here is meant that making sure people get what they deserve from a mind for kind correction of what is happening, what is going to happen, what happened, and so, that type of thing. Self-care, matters of health and care of people, understanding the essential human needs as is age appropriate, learning how to address them when they come up in times of economic overload in healthcare systems, learn care categories and stuff, based off of age, ability, personality, sort of thing, and classifications in a flexible and specific way. And the purpose of that is to create, of this health section that we're talking about, is we're creating happy, healthy, economically valuable, profitable, well-to-do, originating people who know how to act like sane, intelligent human beings that have organically occurring values and stuff. Not values that are just like, glued in their head that can, pop in, pop off, and obviously and largely don't make any sense. And so, but values also stem from healthy, strong, proper personality. these people will make the right decisions, advance society upwards and forwards, and say the right things if the meaning of this is understood correctly and stuff. So I'm saying this in good faith here. Animal care and care of nature, understand the degrees of humanity, value, etc. in animals, and understand what is cruel or insensitive to animals and why not to do it. I cannot stress this more, that animal cruelty has gone out of control in the United States, and we're lagging in the area of lab-grown meat for this reason. Where's the follow-up? Stuff, it's got to be follow-up. Personal property, that has to be taught too. Home care, what does a home need in minimum? How is it maintained when it is not realistic to do it oneself? There you go. As a guiding question, that's the question that should be addressed, in the earnest sense of it, of really trying to, do things. Not in the sense of an extractive institution. Regional planning, what do common spaces outside need to meet private and public needs? Yeah, there's that. Management of threats, violence, hazards, weakness, and danger. I'll be doing a video on that soon. It's called, we'll also be teaching about things like effective action. A good educational system, a proper educational system, should be teaching about effective action for things like loud noises, UV rays, insults, harsh chemicals, sleep deprivation, blue light, radiation, etc., which are known to cause illness in U.S. persons when they are part of abused external controls. Life planning. What is one's calling in life? What career? How long? Health goals, projects, family stuff, where to live. Constructive connections to healthcare, including helping the poor and sick. As long as they're poor and sick, the economy, society, culture, etc., will always depend on them for menial, repetitive, but foundationally essential, highly influential work with repetitive simplicities and basically functioning people. These are people who can only understand how to dig holes, lay bricks, assemble simple things, etc., but they are part of the productive capacity of the country and are very essential for this reason, and among many other reasons. It is well in hand that their functionality is enhanceable because there is nothing science and humanity cannot fix. Charity. Students should learn about charity, to be charitable. So societies that are uncharitable and that they are extractive of the economically destitute or economically under threat are neither desirable or the best goal of authority and show reduced humility. The antithesis, the total opposite of charity, is theft committed on an innocent. Just to make it clear. Other goals, I don't know, maybe, teach pupils a sense of justice and how to sanely carry it out. I would never advocate for anybody to do anything to get themselves in trouble, okay? Lessen harmful aspects of personality development. A good educational system should spot and eliminate encouraging or facilitating bias, lacks cultural hygiene, such as boob tubing, laziness, etc., fallacious thinking, bad information, nonsensical thinking, chaotic behavior, morally dubious behavior, harmful behavior, academic dishonesty, instilled self-destruction and sabotage, malicious trickery, cognitive dissonance, othering, etc., are some things that create mentally harmful environments for pupils. Brains are highly delicate, sensitive things that cannot be processed like the bones and muscles. Fact. They are required for the proper direction of the material they command. They are connected to a supreme informing body, and they are vulnerable to bad information when they are not trained properly. What to expect from this program? What's the intent here? Improved prognostic for U.S. civilization, hopefully, regardless of state. Economic upcorrection with stability for this and stuff. Meaning, no sign that this ship's going to sink anytime soon. Though the ship is almost completely sunk at this point. Elimination of absolute poverty and threat to standard of living. For some, probably more. So, yeah. I've gone on for about half an hour and stuff. I believe I've covered what I need to cover. And yeah, I think if I need to make a follow-up video, I'll just make another episode.